and welcome to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and sometimes guests, guide you to the world of online communications and digital inclusion in a show which was the brainchild of the late, great John Popham. And we welcome our special guest to the show today, Jean McLeod. Jean, if you can switch your audio and visual on, we'll say hello. We're getting there.
Great. That's great.
Hi, Jean.
Hello, Pauline. How are you?
How are you, and how's the weather where you are?
Oh, it's just started to rain. How about that? We don't know where we are. I've got my summer clothes on.
Okay, that's very optimistic.
Yes.
Where are you? Where are you, Jean?
I'm in Birmingham, so at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the show. And Sweyn, how are you, and how's the weather there? Where are you?
I'm in Orkney as usual in Kirkwall, looking out over Kirkwall Bay. It's bright but cloudy, and there's rain around, but it's not raining at the moment.
Okay, and here I'm also in Birmingham. I've got white clouds in the sky, but I was out for a walk earlier, so it was nice, and hopefully it'll come nice again later on. So welcome to the show, Jean. We're delighted you're able to join us today, and we look forward to talking with you about your work and your life and the changes that you're making happen in around lots of things. So we'll come back to you in a minute if that's okay. But first we'll start with the things that we mark around this time of year. And the first one is to say that from Wednesday it's Volunteers Week from the 1st to the 7th of June. This is an annual event. Takes place 1st to 7th of June every year, a chance to recognise the fantastic contribution volunteers make to our communities and say thank you. It's celebrated and supported by small grassroots organisations as well as larger household name charities who together run hundreds of activities across the UK. And these activities showcase and celebrate volunteers and the contribution volunteering makes in our communities. It's the time to say thanks, and it goes without saying that volunteers have played a key role in the pandemic response. During an exceptionally difficult couple of years, people from all walks of life around the UK have taken the time to volunteer and make a huge difference to their communities, just as they do every year. So now we have a chance to come together and thank all volunteers for their valuable contribution. And this 38th annual Volunteers Week is taking place during the hashtag Month of Community. Running throughout June, this brings together organisations with a range of events in order to encourage us all to think about and join in with activities happening in our local communities. So each day of the week has a central theme to guide plans for Volunteers Week. So on Wednesday, it's the launch, a time to say thanks. Thursday, 2nd of June to this Sunday, the 5th of June, is the big Jubilee lunch. And this is happening up and down the country. Various groups organising lunches for local people and volunteers and networks. Several happen in Birmingham. I'm sure they're happening in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland and England as well, the rest of England. On Sunday, the 5th of June, the theme is Thank You Day. On Monday, the 6th of June, Power of Youth Day. And the 7th of June is Volunteers Week close and a final chance to say thank you. So I don't know if that affects either of you. Are you involved in Volunteers Week at all, Sweyn? You do plenty of volunteering.
No, I hadn't. This is I had missed this completely, but no, it's good.
And Jean, are you volunteering in any way?
Yes, I'm always volunteering when I get the room and the space. So at the moment, I'm volunteering at school, helping them around tech. So,
great. Yeah. Okay, we look forward to hearing more about that in a few minutes. That's great. Thank you. So back to the celebrations of days and that we've noticed happening. On the 5th of June in 1981, it was the first Today in History programme with editable data. Invented by Michael Butler, and it ran for the first time on a mainframe computer. So we like picking up things that, kind of tech things that happen around these times as well. Onto events, and from the 9th to the 11th of June is Birmingham Design Festival. This was founded in 2017, created by Brum-based designers Daniel Alcorn and Luke Tong to add a much-needed flagship design event to the local calendar. In 2018, the festival actually launched to great critical success with some of the best designers from around the world featuring in a packed 100-event programme, helping to strengthen the city's reputation as a design powerhouse and establish a desire to see more events like it. In 2022, there'll be over 100 events across 20 plus venues, from upcoming designers to established favourites, with most talks free to attend, and people can still sign up for that. The district that I'll be comparing for on the 9th of June is Digital District. And this is designed for screens of all shapes and sizes. So you can expect to find everything from UX design to visual effects, and join designers who craft digital experiences and provoke emotional responses from their work. So I'm looking forward to being part of that. It was very flattering to be invited to MC one of the districts. So I'm delighted to be doing that on behalf of Northfield Community Partnership. My boss has given me the day to do that. So that's very enjoyable. And one more event before we come to our special guest. From the 14th to the 15th of June is Black Country Digital Festival 2022. And this is for all types of small businesses in the Black Country region. Includes a fully funded 2-day program with events like Wide Pace to Stay Ahead with all things digital and tech, entrepreneur stories, what they did to succeed and lessons learned along the way, local innovators showcasing their latest offerings and tips on scaling up, the latest in tech use cases using AI, IoT, Internet of Things, 5G, advanced connectivity, data analysis, and more, all benefits focused. Stuff about powering up your marketing, making the most of digital, social media marketing masterclasses, including TikTok and LinkedIn, and business grants, how to find them and how to get them. So lots of great digital stuff happening in our region, Jean, and we encourage other people to sign up and attend as well.
Yeah.
And so we come to our special guest for today, Jean McLeod. Jean has been a registered nurse since the age of 18 and is now transitioning into tech through a full stack software engineering bootcamp. Jean is also chair of the Parent School Partnership, a not-for-profit body set up to help schools deliver a more rounded extracurricular education to children in urban environments. Her passion is around digital inclusion and in particular, providing opportunities for individuals to dip their toes into the world of STEM through tech and coding. Jean, we're delighted you could join us today. Very welcome to the programme.
Thank you. Thank you, Pauline.
So we met at a Smart Brum event at Innovation Birmingham several months ago now. And now we keep bumping into each other at tech events as you do. And it's always great to see you. And I think, you asked some good questions about what's happening and why things are so, which is always good to hear. And we love having people like yourself on the program to talk about that. This program was established by a guy called John Popham, sadly no longer with us. He was a kind of prophet before his time, really. He lived in Huddersfield, and he was into live streaming events and connecting people online, years, wasn't he, Sweyn, before, lots of other people. So it's very sad that he's gone, and especially sad because during COVID, I think he would have really come into his own. I mean, he started this program because of COVID and because of, recognizing the need for people to stay connected. So we try to carry on his legacy to some extent with this program, and so far so good. We're 90 plus programs now, so we're very pleased to be carrying on his great legacy and adding to it ourselves, we hope. So Jean, please tell us a bit about your own life and career. We're especially interested to hear how people got started in digital and technology. So please do tell us what you can from your early life.
Well, as you know, I've been a nurse since I was 18, so a long time. But I never really realised actually that I've been using tech ever since the first little computers came in. We had a chance to get it wasn't an Apple, mind you, it was a little IBM, I think, that probably got from Argos or Currys, one of those.
Yeah.
So even when I started my nursing program, I was able to type up my projects and print them out and things like that, or send them to print and things. So I've been using tech for a long time, if I really think about it.
Yeah.
And then obviously in our work, you didn't realise that you were using tech. You were just, I don't think even at work we had computers then. It was all very much written papers. But as time has progressed and years have gone on, a lot of our work has gone onto computers, and now you can't be in the healthcare system without accessing it. But COVID has obviously brought that, like you said, to the fore. John obviously could see all that going to happen. And we had to move everything online. A lot of our services online. And that, we already knew about people being excluded from the digital space, but this really brought it to attention that people were not going to be able to engage with us. And so that's where I am at the moment, doing that piece of work. But I got really interested in coding as my son was growing up, because, as the children are growing up, they're all over the computers. They're not afraid, are they?
No.
We think, we're going to break it. Don't touch that. Don't press that button. But they will just try everything. They'll hack it, and they're not afraid. So he was learning. I took him to all the free camps that I could find, and Apple were doing quite a few things. Plug. Really good camps for free for families, but there's a lot in Birmingham as well. And a lovely couple called Nat and Julia. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we know them. Yeah,
you do?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Hi, Nat, Julia. What have you? Fabulous couple, and a really good heart for digital inclusion.
Yes.
And so we as families went to the space, and they not only taught the children or allowed them just to be exposed to tech, but they were teaching the parents. So it's like teaching us HTML and CSS and such funny things. But it wasn't going to put. What they did help me with was a project that I was doing for work, because I was trying to make it more user friendly and interactive at the end, because it was a lot of tools that there were surveys and questionnaires. That's the main thing for something called United Kingdom Rehabilitation Outcomes Collaborative. So it was around patients that had neurological injuries, and we were asking the staff to fill in these forms. But obviously staff are busy, if we have an emergency, they have to leave forms get dropped on the floor, fall behind the back tables. So we weren't collecting the information in a sustainable way that we could actually then make informed decisions on. Yeah. So what I wanted to do was to put it online. It wasn't really online. It was actually an Excel sheet, but it was available within our server so that staff could drop in and drop out. They could close it down. They knew where they were. And also I could monitor it. So if there's anything missing, I could just pop down to the floor and say, oh, you haven't managed to fill, did you miss this? And also check understanding, so that we made sure that the information we were getting back was consistent across all the teams, and that if they marked a 3 meant 3 for everybody else as well. They understood what 3 was. So then we could see the improvement of our patients. And that was really good, because I was able to then, with my research background, I was able to then put them into charts and show staff how well the patients were doing based on the care that they were giving. So that was amazing. Yeah, so that was really good. So Nat and Julie really helped with making that interactive.
Yeah.
So that's
they're in fact nearer to Sweyn now than they were to us.
Oh, they?
They're living in Great Bernera on one of the Scottish islands.
Wow.
Yeah, they're starting a new community there and crofting and stuff like that. So yeah, we're still in touch. In fact, we might get them on the show at some stage. Yes. Good to catch up with them. Yeah. So that was what year was that then, Jean, about?
Oh, okay. So this is that'll be going back. I'll have to get my diary out. So is that 2016 maybe? I don't know. It goes so quick, doesn't it? That's scary at 10 years, but okay, I could go by my son's age. So, when he was so it's about 7 years ago now, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that Rewired State or one of those?
Yeah, it was Rebel Makers.
Rebel
Makers. That's what I remember it as. And then and then they did some stuff with Avanti. Avanti made a space for them. Is it Avanti? Okay. Made a space for them to come and work there as well. So yeah.
So is that when you started getting familiar with the tech scene in Birmingham?
Yes, that's when I started to.
And what do you remember from those days? What programs or people or buildings became familiar?
Okay, well, Vanti were one company. There was quite a few young people. They were devs, I understand that, but they were part of the Nat and Julia support team, and some of them went to work for that company as well.
You might know Kevin Lewis.
Okay. Yes, I do know Kevin.
Yeah. We had Kevin on the show recently.
Okay.
And it's all a kind of a. When you start knowing one person, you start knowing other people as well. And like Sweyn and I have never actually met in person, as far as we know, but we kind of have moved in the same circles. So we met people at camps and on conferences and stuff like that. Hacks as well. You mentioned hacks. Yeah. Did you go to any hacks?
Yes. When there was one at Birmingham University, and it was the start of a school of code. I don't think they'd started it. It was Chris Mear, and Nat and Julie had organised it, so it was a bit of a road show, or maybe they were part of it. I don't know. But I went there, and met Chris and his colleague at the time, and they had this little avatar, and they were just thinking about and allowing the children to all play. And that was the start of the School with Code. And that really resonated with me, because I thought, people who probably can't afford to change into tech, or don't even think that they could be in tech, or that they're already probably in tech. These were young people, lovely young people, who are really excited about a real new space. And I, as a social entrepreneur myself, could also see the potential of it. I've run businesses, I could see how it could help people, the future. So I could see a few things ahead of what they were probably looking at. But they were very excited about the tech, and I was very interested about tech, and they were so kind, as we were sort of, we were the older generation, if you like, getting involved in something that they're really excited about. But they could see that anybody could learn, and that really excited me. And so that meant that I thought, yeah, I could. Well, I always know I can learn. I'm always learning, always doing something. So, yeah.
And were your son's friends getting involved as well, or was he meeting new people?
Yes, he was meeting new people as well. And what happened is, when he went to his senior school, I was able to take that to the school for children that didn't have access in their primary schools. So it's really important that then those children were getting exposed to things, and then going to these events. Insomnia is a big thing. A lot of children can't afford to go, but I was making sure that they had tickets, by getting funding from whoever. I'm very good at asking for funding.
Yeah.
To make sure that some of the children had tickets to be able to go. So yeah, making new friends and bringing a few. Yeah.
Can you explain what Insomnia is? Not everybody will know that it's a festival.
It's an amazing festival, from young to old. People will dress up. I didn't understand that space, because I'm not a gamer. I just brought my son because he was obviously, they get interested in I think it was Minecraft at the time, wasn't it? They grow out of that. I'm sure it's still there for the younger generation, but as they get more involved in their gaming, they move on to other games, which is a bit of a panic for parents, because during COVID, is that the next one coming up?
Oh, you got it on screen now, Sweyn. Yeah, Insomnia Gaming. When is it on again? Does it give a date?
It was at the NEC, so I don't know where it's going to be this year, but
earlier.
Here we go. Is it
August 2022? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
and people actually camp out. They'll bring their tents, and they camp in the arena. And I think it's great for young people as they're growing up.
Yeah,
slightly older ones can do that. But usually the parents will take the children, and as years go on, before I'm following in, I'm watching everything, and then I'm also saying, well, why don't you go to this person? Encourage them to access, because as young people, they don't really think they just go round. They don't really know what they can access. And I'm very good about going, oh, so what have you got for free? Make sure I can get the pens, get the little lanyards and all these other things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Brilliant. You're definitely a woman on our wavelength, Jean. We relate to this very much. And I'm thinking now about the coalition, and we should suggest a speaker from Insomnia to come to the coalition to talk about digital inclusion, because gamifying things is definitely one of the ways forward. It's a way of relating that most people can relate to now. So yeah, I think I'm getting an idea here we can work on.
An idea.
Well, there's so many, I used to go to a lot of hacks when I was in previous years in Birmingham. It's where I met people like Rick Robinson around smart tech, smart cities and stuff. So it's important, I think, to try and get more and more people involved, as you have done, not just for your own family, but for other people as well. So you're involved in schools as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, when my son went to a senior school, it was a new school. So it was a new free school, and one of the ones that the government had been encouraged, during that period. So, but this school was set up without the full funding that Birmingham University had set up one, and Aston University had set up one, and they came with all their lecturers and the huge amount of funding that they have. This school was set up on a bit of a shoestring, and and a lot of I didn't know about the politics really, but there are a lot of politics. But what I could see, and that was my only vision, was that these children were coming from schools where they hadn't had access to computers in the same way that my son had had in his primary school. His school was a very good primary school, and they had Apple computers, they had little laptops, they had Google, they had everything, and the children were really exposed to a lot. this school, children were coming, and I wanted to make sure that my son continued in that, but also then the other children also had access. So I was very instrumental in making sure that the school started to put computers in the libraries. We got parents together to make sure that we set up a library, because they didn't have that either. They got books in, that sort of thing, because it's not all about computers. It is about sitting and being quiet, and also boys don't tend to read books. So it's about, well, what kind of books will they read? And it's making sure those books are in the library, and some of them are around. What's that? It's like a Japanese art thing. I can't
Manga.
Is it that? Yeah,
I think so.
Anime, maybe.
Anime, that's it. Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
into that, aren't they? Yeah. So making sure there's books like that in the library. You know,
graphic novels. Younger people tend to relate to. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So to make sure, so the computers are in there, but then and then to make sure that they and from that they did set up their computers. So things took time, because they had to do it in a particular way, and that's the politics of thing. But as a parent, I just make sure that it's happening. Ask the questions, and encourage the trustees and the parent governors. But what I also saw was, because from my son's previous school, is that we had a parent body. There wasn't a parent body in this school, so it was because it was a new free school. There wasn't that organised space. So I came in the second year. The school had already opened 1 year, and then we set up. My son came in the second year of the school opening, so there wasn't that parent body. There's nothing organised. So I set up a body around, so have a chair, secretary, treasurer, and to make sure that there are parents who are linked to the teachers, because what I found was that it's really about communication, isn't it? I mean, you're all about communication, how you get information out to people. But not all parents can get online, or certainly in those days, they didn't have access. We all know about these things. They have a little phone. It's not smart. They can ring up, but then have they got credit? There's all of these things, and it's about making sure there's a community space that parents can come in, have a conversation with somebody in the middle of you and the school, because the school's almost like a firewall, which is a protection called safeguarding, which is really important for our children, and to be protected. But that means that then the parents can't necessarily get through to the school. The teachers are overwhelmed. They've got a lot already going on, just delivering the curriculum. So I wanted to make sure that we were supporting them with all the extracurricular stuff that our children could be exposed to. So they had some variety and richness to the school day, and not just, so tech is around. That was one of those things, but also gardening. I wanted to make sure that we were in an urban area, make sure that they had plants around, all sorts of things. So we set up the body, made sure there was parents linked to the teachers and the classroom, so that they could have a conversation with the teachers and bring it back to the parent body, and then we would have an organised conversation and then share that up with the governors.
So this was the parent-school partnership that you are the chair of now?
Yes, yeah. I'm just holding the chair. I'm an interim chair. Yes, because obviously COVID wiped out a lot of parents. Not wiped them out. Sorry, that's probably a bad thing to say. But the children have left now. So 2 years of parents have left during the COVID period. So it's waiting for the new lots of parents who are going to be coming in September, and seeing if we can get a new chair, secretary, and treasurer. A new team to start building again and supporting the school. Because we know that schools that are supported by a really good parent body thrive, and so do their children. And more importantly, then we can be also speaking outwards. So there's a lot of politics that schools are under academy trusts being taken over and all sorts of things, and teachers leave as well. There's a lot of attrition in schools. It's not just our school, and teachers need to grow and develop. So, and they're very passionate about the work they do as well. So if they feel they can't do all they can, they move as well. So is computer science taught at the school as a subject, Jean? Yes, it's very difficult in the early days, because they didn't have a really good science teacher. But now, not science teacher, they had a teacher that was having to do business studies as well as computer science. So it was a huge thing they were trying to deliver. So computers was being delivered in a computer science way to meet the curriculum, which wasn't really about coding. And this is where the Nat and Julia's and the Vantis and all those companies could see that what they were going to be going into, computer science in colleges and things, wasn't teaching them the hands-on experience of working in an organization. It wasn't the fun part. which was really what those children really needed to know now, because they were going to be in those jobs in the future.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be ready. So even if they were going to leave at 16, they're 11 now. And then obviously we had some primary as well. But they were 11 now. That was 7 years or 6 years before they were going to hit the market at 16 or go to college. So they really kind of needed to enjoy it now, love it. And that would then also steer them to the sciences, wouldn't it? So they might say, okay, that really interests me. I wanted to be an engineer. It might be something they never even thought about. I want to do physics, but that might not be something that they would take up as an A-level. But if they didn't do the sciences in secondary and choose the right subjects, they couldn't then enter into physics. So there's all of that. And as parents, we needed to understand that. Education.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's very foresighted of you, and I think it'd be good to tell you about unconferences and other camps and hacks that are happening, that I think you might just, like, very much like me, have a curious mind, just want to go along and see what other people are doing, and then see how that will fit into the jigsaw of your life and the lives of the other people around you. So I think we'll talk about those things going forward. Yeah. So so how did you get involved in the boot camp? Where, how did you? What's the connection? What's the leap?
Yes, it wasn't. I'm going to say it wasn't really a leap. I'm going to say a door opened, but I had applied to boot camp before. But I've got to say it's God's timing. That's what I believe. Everything at the right time. But I had run businesses and been involved in social enterprises. So I'd worked as a nurse on the side, to keep my pin and that sort of thing. But an opportunity arose for me to return to nursing. So I did a little course at Birmingham City University. And so that's an amazing university as well. Really kind people, and they were up at the Edgbaston site. But I was then able to use the Snow, not the Snow Hill site. What's that one down by
Parkside?
No, the other one where they've just opened the steam.
Millennium Point and all that area, Curzon.
Millennium Point, that's right, Curzon Street or somewhere. Yeah, so I was able to use that site. Amazing building, lovely library, really nice space, and they encouraged me to start a business. So I did all that, but I was able to return to nursing. And just a year into returning, COVID happened. So I know that was the Lord's timing. And that I was back at the wheel at a time when they needed expert nurses, because I've been a nurse for a very long time. They needed people that could be flexible and able to reposition, because a lot of nurses there'd been years, say, working in clinic, and they were now being moved to somewhere intensive like ITU. They're also very afraid of what COVID was, because we didn't really know. And then also they didn't sometimes have the power or feel they had the power to speak up about what they were anxious about. But I could sense, I've got a very good sense of people. That's my years of working in HR, basically, in human asset management, I call it. I don't like HR because it's human resources, and that's using people up, spitting them out, and then getting some more. It's not a good name. So for me, it's about human asset management, and people are really important. We know that in the NHS, they're our gold. That's what we're built on. And how they're feeling is really important about the care that patients get. But this was a very frightening time for people. So for me, going back, I was able to really encourage staff as well, and just, work with them and find out about their fears. But while I was there, I thought, this needs to be written down, because I'd been working at Aston University in their Institute for Health Service Effectiveness. So we'd done a lot of pieces of research, commissioned pieces under Mike West and the team at Aston University. So I was used to doing these pieces of work, doing research, undertaking interviews, all those sorts of things, and encouraging staff to talk to us and just, draw people out and get the information, and then present it back in a way that is digestible to the leaders organizations. So it was about, for me, bridging that policy implementation gap. What are they trying to achieve? How are we going to help them achieve it? What are their staff thinking, and making sure that they're all speaking the same language, or otherwise doing a bit of translation. So the chief nurse at the time, she said, I said to her, I'd really like to do this piece of research. So I was running that alongside working as a nurse during COVID. But it was really important because I was able to be there, talk to the staff, find out what their needs are, set up this survey. I use something called Survey Legend.
Surveys, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very good at that. Anyway, I can find free survey tools, and then staff were able to go to that, and I'd set up posters. And when I was working, I would speak to the staff as well and encourage them to go to that survey, but also to share. And then I was able to set up some interviews as well. So I did a report for the organisation, and they were able to use that to really embed some of the support that they were going to deliver for the staff, which is around health and wellbeing clinics. We had some lovely air hostesses who came and delivered some support. That was a whole organisational support thing. So air hostesses that weren't actually working anymore, they came and delivered some of those things. Yeah, they're amazing teams on some of the hospital sites, and that was a national program as well. That was that health and wellbeing thing. And then some of the other things that we asked them to support the staff with, they were able to do. We asked the staff, well, what do you want really, and what do you need? And then the trust were able to put quite a lot of that in place, which is amazing.
And the boot camp came along at the right time, or? Yes,
because COVID of 2 years, running alongside with COVID, and then this year, or last year I should say, was coming to the end of it. Things are starting to open up, and I thought, you know what, I need to transition now. I need to move into the next space. I'm excited about what tech can do in the healthcare, but I need to have a good understanding of it, not necessarily in the detail, but I'm excited about code, and I like what it can do. But even say a patient is moving in a space, say moving in a hospital, if they can't come in now, how do we invent that space for them? Now you call it the metaverse, don't we? Or there's all these things coming up that I'm learning myself. So yeah, the door opened for that opportunity. It was because I was in the right place at the right time that someone mentioned that this was happening. It was actually Tech Week. There you go. Okay. Tech Week. That's where I saw you, Pauline.
Yeah.
So I think
what the boot camp, what actually is it, and
okay,
what
so
does
it's
it
full
involve?
stack coding development. So it's front end, back end. So it's taking somebody from zero to hero. And as you know, I mean, really, I have no tech background, so it's for anybody, I would say. But I would say do the pre-work, definitely. And if you can learn Python beforehand, it gives you a bit of, or pseudocode, it gives you a bit of an understanding when you get there, I think. So I think the work that Nat and Julie did opening my eyes to HTML, CSS, and Kevin did make a difference, because when I got to the HTML, I loved it. I could already see it because I'd already seen it before. When I got to JavaScript, it was like, oh, I don't know anything like this. So I put out to all the people that I knew, any devs out there that can help me with JavaScript. So quite a few people were able to come back and help me.
I think these days, though, Python and R are more popular languages, so you don't have to worry so much about the rest.
Yes.
And technology is developing so fast.
Yeah.
A lot of these things, they write themselves in the end. So it's and as you say, there's always people out there willing to help. We find that constantly in our work, Sweyn and I. So to ask and it'll be provided.
Yeah. Community is really good, and I think that's really nice. And I like the open source behavior. I like that, and I think it's important because then people can access that wouldn't necessarily access, and people can grow. Yeah.
And for people who don't know, open source is where people create code and then make that code freely available on the internet for anybody else to use or reuse. I do a lot of work around open data, and similarly, that's data that could be reused and combined to make new things. So open is where we're at, and we like to hear a lot more of that encouraged. So are you actually on a boot camp right now, Jean, or are you finished, or what stage are you at?
I'm on it. Can't you tell? Oh, I've got lovely colleagues. Well, I say colleagues, fellow students. You know, I am the eldest. You know, they don't know that. Yeah. Well, one of the students, she was so lovely. She said, "Oh, I think I'm the oldest in the room." I thought, I'm keeping quiet. Yeah, but they're really great. So some of them really get it. They're really quick. You know, I think like my son. You know, they're very quick, and they get things. But for those that don't get it quite, and there's lots of us. You know, it's slower, and we need to understand quite often. You know, you need to know why. Yeah. And often, until you can get the why, you can't get past it. So. But there's so much out there. YouTube, we've got really good tutors as well, and support from the university. Because it's a university, I think they've raised the bar a bit. I don't know. I think it's really it's not easy, but I think I've spoken to a lot of boot camp students. It doesn't matter what boot camp you do; it is a trawl. It is really hard work, and you need your team of other students to pull you over the line, you know, and work you over the line.
Yeah, well, you'll find that in work anyway, and you know, you're finding people who will be willing to help you, and the people you meet now are the people you're going to be relying on way into the future. You know,
indeed.
I'm still in touch with a lot of the people I was at the data journalism course with at BCU, and we're still kind of supporting each other. So yeah.
Wow, yeah. And so you see, it's important to be kind now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
At every stage you go, you know, any conference you go to, whenever you're speaking to people, be kind.
Yeah. And it's interesting that sometimes the most geeky, awkward, you know, ill-dressed person turns out to be the company MD, or the person who knows all the code that's actually going to make the difference to you. So it's important to look beyond the presentation of people and see that everybody has something to offer. And this world, it's great. And it's, the more companions and kind of networks we can build up along the way, the better. And you've obviously been doing that throughout your whole life, really. Yeah. So what do your nursing colleagues think of your new career?
I have not shared. I know now. I'm very much a person of, do you know what? Let's just get it done first. Make sure it's okay at work, and then I'll transition. Obviously, my chief nurse, she does know, or she's left now. She's just moved on, so we're going to get a new one. But she does know, because obviously the work that she's asked me to, she commissioned a couple of projects for me around digital inclusion. So that was the final project that I just done for her regarding also the trust. You know, it's not just it's for the organisation to take forward. But it is about, so where do we want to go as an organisation to make sure that our patients, or the people that access it, we don't necessarily call them patients because they're not patients until they're with us ill. You know, quite often people just need to ask a question. They're not a patient, you know. So how do we make sure that they get the health care that they need, can access it? There's a lot out there already. We've already said there's a lot of free information for people to access. They don't need to come to hospital necessarily. And quite often, if you can stop the worry and the concerns, they don't need to turn up at A&E, you know, to ask a question because they couldn't get to their GP, or they couldn't, you know, they're worried. So how do we make sure that we as an organisation, which is huge in the Midlands, are outward facing and helping individuals out? So, sorry.
What was the nature of the digital inclusion projects that you mentioned?
Okay, so it was scoping the organisation. So it's at a very early stage, scoping the organisation as to what is it we want to be able to do. What do our patients, what do we have out there? It's not the depth, because the next stage is quite in depth, which is going to talk to the patients in a curated space and then asking them the questions. But it was drawing in, because as we already know, there's a lot of already Good Things Foundation, the Young Foundation, there's all of those out there that have already done a lot of projects. So it's about bringing that all into the space, delivering it back to our leaders who already have an idea of what they would like to do, but also saying, well, actually, people have already spoken to your potential demographics, your potential clients, or your potential stakeholders, users, whatever the term you want to use. You've already spoken to those people. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at what's already out there. And then, speak to some of our stakeholders as well, because then we'll know what questions to ask. It was about scoping the landscape, not just internal, it's scoping what's already out there, bringing it back and saying, how do we move on from here?
Yeah.
And what I did was create a couple of composites. So that around the tech, that sort of like got me that kind of a way of delivering it. So the young person might have a pair of headphones on, might have a smartphone in their hand, but not necessarily are they accessed. That phone might mean that they don't have internet, or they might be relying on their parents, and that's what I wrote it in. Actually, the parent was the next person, but they're relying on their parent to pay that bill. And if they don't have internet, they'd have to go and stand by a Wi-Fi tower somewhere, and that can mean that if they've got maybe they need to access the service for a reason, whether it's for whatever reason, whether they're worried. They may not be, you may think that they're tech savvy, but they, so that was one.
Not necessarily, So like a persona sort of thing, as
that's
they say.
The word, you're absolutely right. It's a persona. Yes. Term. Well done, Pauline.
No, it's just things we pick up along the way, and it's like, it's good to have the language, but it's also good for tech people to also speak, in language that other people can understand as well. And like we're on this program, we do try and explain to people who might not have that technical background what the language is, and not to exclude anybody. I know you're not trying to do that, but it's it has been done by other people in the past, and it's not something we want to keep going. So it sounds like you're across multiple fields, like us, super connectors, trying to bring people together to benefit the world, really. Not just, you're not just thinking about yourself and your own family, you're thinking about other people and other people's families, which is brilliant. So what's next on your agenda in the next, say, 12 months?
Okay, so I don't really know, because it's like, I'm at that stage where the next stage, it has to be something that I love. I mean, I've always loved nursing, there's no doubt about that, but I've gone on to other things and used my nursing expertise, that management expertise in other areas. So for me, this next transition needs to be something that I really love and enjoy. So there's lots out there. I was thinking about doing consultancy, because I do that anyway. So that would get me into new organizations, because it's not just about health. I can help there. But it could be fintech, it could be femtech, it could be health tech, there's so many opportunities. It could be something that I've not even thought about, Pauline, that suddenly arises. And I think, I can add value there. So, I'm looking to transition into the world of tech. Well, I'm there already. But it's about bringing my skills. I've led on a couple of we've had projects within the boot camp as well, because, you have to be Scrum lead and or product owner, or you've got to be the front end, back end dev, those sorts of things. So as part working with teams, that's something I've always done, and developing good teams and functional teams. So there's stuff that I can do, and it's just really finding the right space.
Yeah. Well, I think we are going to have a long and profitable and enjoyable relationship in the tech world in Birmingham and the Midlands.
Yes.
I'm loving seeing you pop up at various places. We kind of see each other, and I think it's going to be good. And we should sit down and talk about what next, really, because I think there's a lot to be gained from us working together. So
I love the idea of smart buildings, that smart building that they've set up, because even with the new hospitals, I mean, that the new hospitals there's a new one going up in Sandwell, that area. I don't know what they've been involved with. They should have really at the beginning, embedded a lot of stuff, and I really hope they have. But, if you don't have the right people who really understand the technical side of making this building smart from the very beginning, you kind of you're on the back foot, aren't you? And reinvent what is it when you have to put things in backwards, but they have to put
re-engineer them. And I think maybe this is a conversation we should raise at the coalition meeting, because I think digital inclusion covers such a wide breadth of things, and they need to think from the top level right down to the grassroots as well. So
well, they're building new houses they're building new houses, they're building new little estates, organizations. Those need to be smart from the get-go. They need to have sustainable, what's the word, solar panels on top where their own energy. The streets need to be smart. They have the opportunity to put that in now at the very
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I think they use the word retrofit
that's
for some of the older houses, and stuff like that. And I'm part of a program at Civic Square about donut economics that's looking at the climate emergency and how we can, kind of be mindful of that, because that's affecting us all as well. And we haven't even talked about that, but we will. I'm sure we will at another time. Jean, if people want to contact you after the show, how's the best way to do that?
Okay, so I have just set up an email. Not just set up an email, but this is for my dev stuff, and I've just it's called DEV dev at iteration ITERATION 50.io.
Nice.
So set up .io.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I will make sure that goes on the description of this YouTube video when it appears on YouTube. So that you'll be able to find that there.
Yeah.
Great. So thanks very much for coming on the show, Jean. We're going to talk about a few of the stories we picked up in the last week or so. So please do stay with us and comment as you see fit. So the first one was why a digital first BBC should worry us all, by Scott Bryan, a story in the New Statesman. Apparently, with the BBC centenary is celebrating its centenary this year, but it doesn't. The staff apparently don't feel like celebrating much because the cost of the license fees to be frozen for the next 2 years before rising with inflation, and there's another round of cuts being announced on top of an existing £1 billion of savings. Previous cuts have focused on everything but programming. This time, the resultant changes to the BBC's outputs are stark. BBC News, BBC World News are to merge their output, BBC 4, CBBC and Radio 4 Extra to move online to BBC iPlayer in a few years' time. 1,000 more jobs are to be cut after years of existing rounds of redundancy, and even BBC Radio 4 long waves to be phased out. The article, though, is concentrating on the moving of CBBC, Children's BBC, which has been broadcasting as a standalone channel since 2002, moving to iPlayer. And the article says that this will be a disaster for low-income households who may no longer be able to affect children's programs. Many families may not have a compatible television to watch programs on demand or the other devices needed to allow children to watch their favourite shows online. And it's already been an issue for the BBC. During the first wave of the pandemic, the broadcaster unveiled its biggest educational offer in history, hundreds of hours of the syllabus available on demand while schools were closed. But by the time of the second lockdown, many of these educational programs were also shown on BBC Two after senior staff realised some of its vital audience could not access them in the first place. And we haven't talked that much on the show, I think, about digital exclusion and younger children, schools to be specific. So this was news. This was kind of a big story for me, Sweyn. I thought it was worth flagging up that, again, the lack of access to technology, might be an issue for some families. So,
yes, yeah. I mean, broadcasting programs on normal television is, well, I don't know. I mean, I can see this going in two ways. I suspect that the technology in some people's homes to receive normal television will start to wane as well, as both we, the consumers, and they, the providers, focus more and more on digital. Then I can see that the take up then of kind of linear television sets might start to decline a bit. It might start to change what it is. But I think it's just yet another example that we have to make sure that we take account of the people who find it difficult to afford things as they change and as they become new. And it's just a really illustrative example of one of those areas, really, where what people have relied on for years and years changes. That at the point of change, that involves costs and new learning and new skills, possibly, and we've got to make sure that we don't leave people behind.
Absolutely. What do you think, Jean?
Yeah, absolutely. During COVID, we had to make sure that the children had access to computers and laptops that they could take away with them. But yeah, we'd already identified that they may not have an internet when they got there. So they had to make sure there was dongles, and then it became a national program, that everybody was doing it. So yeah, it was really important for those children to have access. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a story recently actually about smart TVs and how the article was encouraging people to buy less smart TVs because by having a smart TV, you're selling advertising, and they're selling you advertising and stuff. So you're not always the best thing for everybody to have a smart TV. Okay, moving on to the next article. The headline is "Accessibility Necessary for Some, Useful for Everyone," and this is on a website called Divanti.com. And it says that accessibility of services is not about being nice and caring. It's about doing the right thing, especially in the online world, where creating a barrier-free environment for people with special needs can yield significant benefits. And it points out, as we have said before, accessible solutions are ones that can be used and understood by everyone, regardless of their preferences or disability level. So digital inclusion, accessible solutions for digital can benefit more than just disabled people. According to the World Health Organization statistics, there are more than 1 billion people with some form of disability around the world, making up around 15% of the total population. In the US alone, 19.9 million people, 8.2% of the population, have difficulty lifting their arms or grasping objects, which can significantly hinder using a mouse or keyboard. More than 15 million people, 6.3%, suffer from cognitive, mental, or emotional impairment. Visual impairment affects 8.1 million people, and hearing impairment affects 7.6 million people. And then it moves on to Poland. When it comes to Poland, there are more than 3 million people who have a disability certificate, which is their way of recognizing disabled people. And they say, in fact, there are many more people who with various disabilities, 4 to 7 million, including people who are partially sighted or blind, deaf or hard of hearing, and people with color vision disorders, including color blindness. They also mention people with motor impairment, photosensitive epilepsy, cognitive disorders, and ADHD, and the rate of those rose sharply during the pandemic. And then they mention another large risk of group of digital exclusion being senior citizens. Currently, almost 9 million people in Poland over the age of 60, and that figure is expected to rise to 10.7 million by 2030 to account for almost 30% of the population. So that would be groups, large groups of people needing more access. And they mention accessible websites as part of the solution, and giving a list of additional advantages of accessible websites are compliance with Polish and European law, universal access to digital services in various situations, SEO and better search results, easier and cheaper modifications, usability, EU subsidies, and a business advantage over competitors. So there's lots to be gained from better websites. And we've talked about that previously on this show as well. So yeah, better for everybody there. Sweyn, any more comment on that?
No, I think that's another good story. Absolutely right. We need to make accessibility. It does benefit everybody. It's a little bit of extra effort from providers, but it's an enormous benefit to the population at large.
Absolutely. Okay, another story you picked up was about what old people find stressful and upsetting: car parks paying by app or credit card. And this was from a couple of tweets by Pete Pafides, was on Twitter. Can you bring that one up, Sweyn? It was a series of tweets. And I think we can all relate to this one. It's not just old people. I find, if the car park where you have to pay by card or you have to put your number in or whatever, it's just feels like a barrier. But in this particular case, they're saying that quite a lot of old people, I think he means older people, it doesn't mean old people just, don't carry an app or a credit card, and they have no idea what an app is. The story, the man is saying that just over a month ago, my dad called me in a bit of a panic because he'd driven to the Greek Cathedral in Birmingham for a friend's memorial service. And since the last time he visited and this one, the car park's payment system now only allowed him to pay by app or by using an automated payment line for which you need a credit card. And that's easy to get that number wrong, even if you have one, especially when you're 84 in this particular case. So this man's father didn't want to be late for his friend's memorial service, so he took a chance and parked there. And then he called his son to say if the son could go online and find a number where he could speak to someone before they could process a fine. Well, that wasn't possible, and so the son filled in a form on a web browser, no response, and eventually there was a fine which landed on his parents' doormat. Sadly to say, in the interim, his father died. So the man had to email UK car park management to ask them to update their records, as they obviously weren't allowed going to receive the payment now. The UK car park management, he says, didn't believe him when he told him when he told them that the dad wouldn't be able to pay the PCN, they said, because he died. So they've now referred the matter to Debt Recovery Plus. So it goes on. The gentleman has now received his father's death certificate, but it does illustrate how hard it is for older people to go about their daily business. And as he puts it, how we terrorize them for the crime of not knowing how to download a expletive app. And so when someone, anyway, there was more comment about that, but it's illustrative. And we are often saying on this show about how when a digital service is provided, you have to provide a non-digital service as well. It's just not, you can't force people into using a digital service if they're not able or not willing to adapt. It's just, it's not fair. Jean, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, Pauline. You need to have the conversation. I mean, the fact that they introduced the car parking is just a simple example without communicating to the people that would be using it. How would you be using it? What would you find easier? And then asking them before you deliver that service. It's really important to have discussed with people, but also you're going to get voices, that you're going to get the people who speak all the time. So it's really important to get to the back, and say, so what do you think? The people that are not speaking, and really being proactive to find out what they really need.
I mean, the data is out there that, like, people, yes, lots of people do have smartphones, but lots of people don't. Huge numbers of people don't and don't want to, or can't afford them, or whatever. And so trying to force them to use a smartphone, use a system like that, it's just not. It's not fair. It's not fair,
and it's not very smart, is it?
No, it's not.
Without a battery, when you've got
that can happen,
in your hand and there's no battery or there's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the app is not working.
Yeah,
so you do need to have alternatives.
Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely. Okay, we'll do one more story before we close the show today, and this is from another story from the US. But I thought they title it 10 Suggested Commandments for Closing the Digital Divide by Joe Kane and Jessica Dine, and it's a story on itif.org, which is a telecommunications institution for helping people with telecoms. But they're reporting that the states are, various states in the US are set to receive billions of dollars in federal funding, enough to close the digital divide for once and for all, they say. So they're saying the following these 10 commandments, they will ensure they make the most of the money and citizens get the connectivity they need. So it's 1 to 10. I'll go through them as quickly as I can. So they're saying take advantage of the market competition by allocating funds via reverse auction. So this article will be tagged in the YouTube notes so people can pick it up more. But basically, I'll go on. Second, to allocate funding on a technology neutral basis to prioritize functionality. So don't be sold by a company. Decide what the functionality is and then decide who to get it from. Thirdly, set a reasonable non-symmetrical speed thresholds that will actually benefit consumers. Fourthly, focus on first serving those who currently lack broadband entirely rather than overbuilding. And the reason actually I'm picked this article out is because we might learn from it here in the UK as well. Number 5, target individual needs by putting money in the pockets of consumers, always good. 6, collaborate with other states and the federal government to learn from mistakes and converge on the best practices for efficient deployment. 7th, evaluate internal regulations and remove barriers to broadband deployment that would eat up time and money without getting services to citizens. 8th, weed out unsound bidders by withholding full payment until the promised project is complete. We can always think of instances of that where that's happened. 9th, resist calls for government-owned networks except as a last resort and rely instead on experienced broadband providers with economies of scale. And 10th, provide ongoing oversight to incentivize successful project completion. So there's 10 ways to start addressing this, and hopefully other places can learn from that as well. So we have rapidly come to the end of the show. Jean, we were delighted you were able to join us today. Thank you so much. And we learned a lot and we found it very useful. Was there something that you wanted to share with us? A survey, I think that you were you're encouraging people to fill in.
Yeah, I've got a poem. I don't know if I've got time to read it because that's the NHS staff were encouraged to put their shoulder to the wheel, come and do extra work. Some of them were part-time and they were happy to do that during the COVID period. Then last year, the HMRC wrote to a number of, well, not just a number, there's quite a few staff who are, and asked for, they said, because you earned more than we expected in the year prior, and because you worked more hours than we expected in the year prior, during the year of COVID, we want all the working tax credit back.
It doesn't sound right to us.
It's immoral. It's immoral. You know, so I want that stopped. I've written to the Prime Minister, no answer. I've written to the Rishi Sunak, and no answer. The HMRC, it's just the maths. You know, they can't do anything. Somebody needs to move on it. It's absolutely wrong. These are families, not just nurses. You know, they're porters. They might have a family that's they're relying on that money, and this could be £5,000 that they're asking back. So.
So you've got a survey that you'd like people to complete, and we will put the link to it with the YouTube notes for people to follow up on. Basically, to stop the HMRC demanding working tax credit giving during the pandemic to NHS workers.
Yes.
So we're happy to share that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sweyn. Thanks, Doreen. Everybody have a good week. Thanks. Bye.